Hi, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Silkit. I'm from SATS. Well, today I want to talk about what is SATS. Right? I'm not too sure all of you know about SATS. Then we'll talk about SATS cloud journey, our definition of cloud, basically in layman term, and how we actually define cloud to our management to get a buy-in. What are the pros and cons of each cloud type? Right? Preparing for the cloud journey. What are the critical success factors that we have actually learned over the years when we want to adopt cloud? And of course, basically I'm here to share my experience, the benefits, the pitfalls, and a couple of examples. Right? SATS. Right? SATS was actually part of the Singapore Airlines Group until 2009. So we have actually 60 years of operating ground handling, right, at the airports. Right? If you are flying out of Singapore airport or into Singapore airport, the first person you see is basically this lady, right, at the check-in counters. Right? So SATS is actually providing services to check passengers in. Right? And SATS is both, basically we are in what we call the gateway services as well as the food solutions. I will basically describe what we mean by gateway services and what we mean by food solutions. Right, today we are the market leader at Changi Airport. We basically handle about 80% of the scheduled flights, and we have actually present in 30 airports in 12 countries, mainly in the Asia-Pacific region. Okay. Right. So there are actually two parts of SATS. Right. The aviation part, which is basically pretty much airports. Right. So we are into passenger services. Right. Apron services basically are services that we render to airlines to help load your bags, download your bags, basically to push back the aircraft. Then, of course, we have this component called cargo services. We actually manage cargo that is going out and coming into Singapore. Then we are also into aviation security, right? The man uniform actually provides security at the airport. And finally, very important is we feed. We help to produce meals to feed the passengers on the airline, right? And of course, supporting this whole aviation setup, we have our corporate offices. So this is the aviation part, which have been in this business for the past 60 years. The other part, which is not so well known of SATS, is that we actually own Singapore Food Industries, right? So this is where the institutional catering is, right? We actually supply to about 53 military camps in Singapore, right? And we also do food products and distribution. In fact, if you are Singaporean or whatever, right, you always see there's a SFI food sales, right? There's one happening this weekend as well, where we actually sell food items, raw materials at pretty good price. Last year, we started to operate at the first Singapore International Cruise Terminal. So here, it is actually at Marina Bay. We can actually service 2 big ships, about up to 6,000 packs per ship. And very soon, next year, March, we'll be providing food, right, to all the athletes, to basically to all the spectators at the new sports hub in Singapore. And finally, we have a linen washing division, right, that washes all the blankets, the pillowcases on board aircraft, right? So this is basically about SATS, right? And basically, we are operating from Changi Airport, which is, as you know, 24/7, highly mission critical, right? We cannot afford to delay flights, right, taking off. We cannot afford to delay handling of passengers checking in, boarding and alighting, because we're dealing with people, right? So whatever systems we put in, right, must be 24/7 mission critical, right? And how cloud actually play a role. Our journey into the cloud, we are basically using multiple facets of the cloud, right? So our journey started in 2010, when we actually were divested from SIA. So previously, when we were part of SIA, our email was actually on Lotus Notes. I have an example later on to basically illustrate why we went into the cloud-based Office 365. Then I've also an example where actually we use, Office 365 is actually in a public cloud, right? Basically, it's a public cloud offering by Microsoft, right? Today we are one of the largest and first users of Office 365 in Asia Pac. We have about 11,000 seats, right? iFleet is a private cloud, right? Another example, later on I will illustrate on why we move iFleet into the cloud. Then in 2011, because we need to find our own data center, so we actually implemented our own private cloud, which is currently run by Syntel, right? And then our CRM, which is based on Salesforce, is actually in the public cloud. And finally, very important at the airport is this system called BRS, what we call Baggage Reconciliation System. Basically, for every bag that's loaded on the aircraft, we need to know which bag loaded in which container, so that when there's a need to offload, we know which container to look for to offload the bags, to make sure that we don't delay the aircraft. Okay? So BRS is a very important system at the airport. And then in 2012, we used to be in the same SAP instance as SIA. So for the divestiture, we actually have to migrate out. And we actually migrate out into a hybrid cloud, right? So our SAP today is somewhat in a what we call a private public cloud hosted by Accenture, right? And finally, in the airline industry, cloud is not new to the airlines, right? Yesterday, one speaker mentioned about 85 airlines actually have adopted a cloud-based reservation and departure control system, right? So CMFM is basically a cloud-based airline reservation, inventory, and weight and balance departure control system, right? So all your bookings actually is in the cloud, right? And when we do check-in, right, when we select your seats and so on, all the information actually shared stored in a public cloud, right? And this public cloud today, the famous one is Amadeus, right? So basically, our definition of a cloud, right? I know that consultants and techies have given a lot of definitions of cloud, but basically, from a layman's point of view, what is cloud meant to us as an end user? When we talk about private cloud, it's basically off-premise, right? Our traditional legacy-wise, our data centers are actually built next to our office, right? But in the cloud world, basically, is that my data center is not in my office, but somewhere else in Singapore, right? For our case, our SATS data center is actually hosted by Syntel NCS. So I have one data center in Bedok and one data center in Kim Chuan, right? But virtual effect that is a private cloud means this cloud is dedicated for SATS use only, right? For a public cloud, it is also off-premise and is shared with others, right? Basically leveraging of common services offered by this public cloud provider. For example, Office 365, which is Microsoft cloud-based email and collaboration offering, right, is an example of a public cloud. Salesforce CRM is also an example of a public cloud. Finally, we have a hybrid cloud, right? It's off-premise, initially dedicated for SATS own use, but could be extended to others later. What I mean is that certain component of the cloud is a shared component. For example, your firewall, your core switches, but then they will basically segment off a logical VLAN or whatever, for SATS use, right? And of course, with this, the necessary security implementation also need to be carried out. And its meaning and relevance to the business. Okay, very important is that, yes, we have definition of a cloud, but what does it mean to us as a public listed company, part of the Temasek Group companies, right? Private cloud, of course, very highly secured because it's only for me, right? And the service level agreement, basically, I can tell Syntel I need a response time of 60 minutes and a resolution time of 4 hours for what we call severity 2 kind of incidents, right? But what it translates to is higher cost because I'm not sharing components with others. A public cloud, right? For example, Office 365 is ease of access anytime, anywhere, right? So in the past, when we implemented in-house email system, for anyone to access the email through your smartphone or whatever, or your laptop, we need to issue each of us a token, or we need to have VPN clients, right? But with Office 365, basically, is that anyone can access from the smartphone. Of course, the question is info security. Of course, there are ways and means that we can tackle this particular issue, right? Then, of course, we have standard service level agreement. I can't tell the public cloud supplier to say, hey, I need a 24/7 or a response time of 60 minutes. They say, no, it's based on whatever I provide as a public cloud service provider. Right? So I have no say in terms of the definition of the standard service level agreement. And of course, being public, right, the cost will be the lowest of the three options. Hybrid, fairly secured, right? It's not entirely highly secured, neither is it less secured, but basically there's a certain control that we could put in to secure our, basically our servers, our data inside that particular cloud. Again, there's a certain degree of customization in terms of SLA, and of the three, of course, moderate cost because you're sharing certain components. Okay. Now, pros and cons of each of these clouds. This is basically based on our experience, right? So, in terms of private, we have complete full control because we can basically dictate the architecture, we can dictate the SLA, and usually we would want to have a private cloud for implementation for mission critical and sensitive systems because these are the systems, that we need to control, right? But of course, the negative side is higher cost. In terms of public clouds, we can leverage on shared services and expertise, lower cost, and mainly for commodity items, right? Commodity systems, right? For example, a Salesforce CRM, an email and collaboration system. But the negative side is that we have no or very little control, and we need to manage by SLA, right? So basically is that when we negotiate contract with a public cloud service provider, we can only say, okay, they will give us a SLA, and we can only kind of like manage them or penalize them if they cannot meet SLA, right? Hybrid cloud, some within our control, good for scalability, right? And of course, moderate cost. Okay, now I go to cloud readiness checklist. Okay, this is a checklist we use internally, right? It is still being refined as we acquire more experiences, right? First of all, we need to have a vendor and asset management framework because everything is outsourced, right? So we need to have a framework on how to manage vendors and how to track their SLA, right? So every month we will have meetings with the, for example, Sintel is providing the private cloud data center services for us. So every month we will have meetings with them to run through the SLAs, basically all the incidents, right? And work with them to see how we can improve the SLA or basically look at optimizing our resources, right? Information security policy is very important because being a cloud, your data is actually not in your office premise, right? It's in a cloud, it's in someone's data center and all the stuff. So we need to have a very comprehensive information security policy. And it's not only the policy, but also compliance, right? So we will need to have audits, regular audits, right? So we send our internal auditors, we send external auditors to audit our private cloud service provider. For the public cloud, a bit tough for us because, first of all, it is a black box to us, so we cannot even audit them. So what is important later on, I'll share, is that we need to have the right partner, okay? We need to have the right service provider, okay? That have basically comply or have some kind of information security policy in place, and they comply with it, and they show evidence they actually comply with it, okay? Architecture standards, right? So basically is that if you put too many things in a cloud, I would say it become very cloudy, okay? Very messy, right? So, so we need to have some kind of architecture standards, right, to be in place so that through architecture standards, it guides us basically what we put in a cloud and what we don't put in a cloud. Okay? Of course, there's a cloud strategy which is very similar to architecture standards, right? And then the skill sets, okay? In the past, when you run a data center, okay, when you run a data center, of course, you need to have system administration skill set, database administration skill set, and so on and so forth, right? So, but when you move your servers to the cloud, right, you hardly got a chance to touch the servers. So basically, these are the new skill sets you need to have. Project management is very key. So to manage the migration of data from a local server to a cloud-based server, right? Contract management, right? You need to have a very tight contract with the service provider, all right? So basically, contract management skill set is very important. Architecture, right? You need to have a very good architecture. Info security policies as well as audit, okay? So basically, this is the experience that we have learned over the years. Before you embark on a cloud journey, learn from others, right? Basically, is that because we have gone through the experience, we'll be able to share with you all the pitfalls, what to avoid and so on. Then pilot a public cloud offering. Email is the best pilot because email basically is a commodity item, right? Then learn from experience, develop capability, okay? For example, contract management, contract info security policies and so on, and a cloud strategy. And most important, find the right partner, right? Because if the partner is a very small partner, have no policies and compliance, you have a problem, okay? So that's how we started. And some of the critical success factors, management, you need to have management buy-in, right? Basically, it's the reason why you go to cloud. How do you protect your data in the cloud and so on? You need to have this continuous learning improvement. Basically, is that when you go to a cloud, it doesn't mean you stop there. You have to evolve. You have to continue to learn and improve. The right skill sets and the right partner. Right? Partner is again illustrated here. I mean, I can't basically lighten the focus on right partner because partnership is very important. I must have a very reliable service provider because usually when we move to the cloud, it's for the long term. It's not for a short-term interim solution. Okay. Why we adopt the cloud? Opportunity, right? First of all, is that we were divested from SI, we need to look for a data center. And secondly, is that the cloud offering is getting more and more matured. Okay. Lower total cost of ownership. I don't have to incur large capex up front. So basically, is that my data centers, my servers, my operating systems, everything is actually on a what we call the resource unit basis. All right, it's OPEX. So the cost is a variable cost. The cost goes up when your business goes up. Okay. Leverage on pooled expertise. I don't have to buy my own or retain my own system administrator, database administrator, and so on, which is very expensive. Ease of management, one SLA, right? And lastly, flexibility and scalability. For example, if I need to implement a system in 1 month's time, right? Because the cloud provider will have access capacity, they can actually quickly activate the additional resources. Okay. Challenges that we encountered, as I said, non-performing partners who basically do not meet SLA. Business wanted their own system. As with any IT shops, business always say, hey, I got a cheaper solution out there, right? So these are the challenges to bring the business together and say, hey, come to IT if you want a system so that IT can provide you with a cost-effective and very consistent system. Complex architecture, right? So basically, it's the interfaces here and there and so on and so forth. Now, 2 examples, as I mentioned up front, I want to give. First of all, these are what we call the GSEs. These are what we call the ground support equipment. This is a JCPL, right? So these are the pushback, and these are the tractors. Okay, and basically we want to track the location of all these vehicles in the airport, right? We need to know what is the work mode. In case, for example, I need an equipment to service a arrival flight, so I need to know where is my closest, nearest GSE. Okay. So scenario, fleet management system required 24/7, 99.5% uptime. Problem statement, it was running on a platform that we do not have expertise, right? We're very dependent on the vendors. So as a result, when we first started the system, there were finger pointing between both the application vendor and the infrastructure vendors, right? And almost daily downtime, right? So the only solution was to reboot the JBoss server every day, okay? So, of course, this is not overnight that we think of this solution. But basically, we outsource to the application vendor to provide a SaaS cloud-based solution because then we have a single SLA, single person to choke, right? And today, we managed to achieve an SLA 24/7. And what is great is that when they do the upgrade at the back end, it's seamless to us, right? We don't have to basically lay a hand or lay a finger on buying new servers and upgrading it. Just now, I was talking about Lotus Notes, which was on-premise previously, and we moved to Microsoft 365 in the cloud. Okay, so we need a solution, a messaging collaborative solution, secured anywhere, anytime, required 24/7. So the problem statement is that we need to have own system after divestiture. We need to have one global address book because we have multiple entities, and it needs to be easily extendable to new entities. Right? I don't have to worry about that entity. We have to integrate the network before it can come in. right? So we leverage on BPOS, and today it's secured anywhere, anytime, and also every year we enjoy these free upgrades to enjoy more functionalities and so on, right? So basically, in a nutshell, that is the experience. And if any questions after this, you can actually email to me. Right. Thanks. Yeah.
Any questions from the audience? We have time for a couple of questions. Here's a mic coming up.
Thanks. In the cloud readiness checklist, you mentioned one of the skills is audit. Can you maybe just talk about the scope of your audit and the challenges that you met when you undertook both commercial discussions with the CSP and the actual the execution of the audit?
Okay. I think as I mentioned, if the cloud is privately owned by us, audit is not an issue because it's in our contract to say that the service provider must allow our auditors to go into the data centers to audit the implementation. So the audit basically will be at two levels: the physical network layer, the server setup layer, and all the stuff, right? So far, we have no challenges whatsoever for audit in a private cloud. In a private cloud, because it is a cloud that's owned by us and is factored in the contract. But as I mentioned, in a public cloud, it's going to be challenging, right? So what we can only do is that before we engage the private cloud supplier, is that we need to have an understanding what policies they comply to, and whether they do have their own internal audits, and whether at the end of the day they can share the major findings of the internal audits. So far, we have no issue with that. Yeah. Right.
Okay, one more quick question. Yes, over here in the back.
When you change from, let's say, Office to, let's say, Office 365, right? Have you evaluated other web-based Office or cloud-based Office solution?
Okay.
And,
okay. Basically, whether we have evaluated, yes. In fact, in 2009, right, there were no other offerings, right, other than the BPOS. So we actually evaluated hosting our own Lotus Notes or Exchange on-premise business in the cloud. And we found that the cloud-based offering was much more, in terms of cost, it was more cost-effective. And also enabled us to scale pretty fast. And we were quite happy that, quite satisfied with Microsoft because they have provided a redundant solution as well, right? So the main data center is in Singapore and the secondary data center is in Hong Kong. So it will basically ensure almost like 99.5% uptime. So when we did evaluate, I would say only BPOS. And of course, you're talking about Gmail and Hotmail. The reason why we didn't go there is because the concern is that these are a public cloud, so-called, that general public will use it, whereas Microsoft Cloud is more a paid public cloud, right? So in terms of these policies, the secure policies, Microsoft is actually very strict in terms of its information security policies, right? So some of the consideration why we went for Microsoft is info security, uptime, and of course cost. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks
Thank
very much for sharing all those insights with us and your journey through cloud over the last 3 years. If we can put our hands together for Hugh Kit Lee.
Thank you.